Welcome back, everyone, to My Divine Light with Lance and Patty Lamons. And today's subject is going to be about the soul senses, which has to do with five senses, but we'll let Lance tell you about that.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Nice to be here with you. Um, Now, I am like everyone else. I'm a human being. You know, uh, we're not really human beings, but we're going through this state of consciousness that we call the human consciousness, and um, we are all in our soul state. We are all the same. And that is as far as all the qualities and capacities that God gives every one of us is within each of our souls. And at any time, one can turn and live in God. There's no requirement as far as uh, what you have to do. It's a matter, the only thing that is required is that we wake up and understand that God is already present with us, has always been, and always will be. And when we wake up to that, then God comes alive in our life, and then we start to experience a more pleasurable experience. More good things come into our life. So I am the only reason I am a servant and a messenger is because I have taken the time to go within and learn how to wake up to a certain degree. And I have received revelations from within my own soul. And that is what I'm here to share with you and with anyone who wants to listen. But I can tell you it won't benefit you unless you actually do the work of the awakening, of waking yourself up.
When that happened, did you find out you were not who you thought you were?
Well, yes, that's exactly true because we're not who we seem to be. We're actually not human. And that means we're not mortal.
Yeah.
We don't have limitations. God never created us with limitations. Um, and this experience that we're having is an experience from the soul identifying with the outer mind and the outer body. And that brought about this experience of mortality. Uh, Now, to start off with, I'd like to have you do a meditation with me. And what we're going to do is we're going to close our eyes and we're going to put our attention on our ears. And if we put our attention there, we'll hear noises that are in our outer experience. But if we concentrate with our attention on the ear, we can listen to what's within the ear. And if we do that, we'll hear the sound of blood flowing. Now, most of us have learned that if you cup your ears, what you hear is your blood flowing. But you don't need to cup the ears. You can do it to start with if you need to. But if you focus, you'll be able to hear the blood flowing on the inside of your ear. So just take a minute and see if you can focus on that. It's not real important if you actually hear it or not, but what is important is that you listen for it, that you're listening within yourself, within your body at this point, to try and hear the blood flowing. Now, once we get a hold of that and start to hear that, or even if you don't hear it, understand that there is a sound that is behind the sound of the blood flowing. There is an inner sound, and it is, in reality, it is the sound of God. So see if you can go beyond the blood flow, go below the blood flow, and listen within. Now, if you practice that, eventually you'll be able to hear within yourself. You'll begin to awaken your inner perceptions. Now, there's a lot of different methods. This is only one method that you can use, but it's a good way to start developing listening within. And this is important because what we're trying to do is wake up our inner perception. And in order to do that, we have to turn within and listen. And this is what happened to me is when I started practicing hearing within, listening for what God's response was, that eventually I began to receive revelations. And it was about awakening these inner senses. Now, I suggest that you practice that, and also now focus your attention on the eyes. And close your eyes, but put your attention there. And think about, I see this outside world with my eyes. But what is in the eye? Let me look within my eye. And see if you can see that not only is there an inner molecular structure within your eye, but you can go beyond that. Behind that is an invisible world to these outer mortal eyes. There's an invisible presence there that, and you can, if you concentrate, watch and learn to watch within and look within. There is a light shining within you. And you can develop and practice and awaken your inner senses this way also. And it works for all the senses. You know, there is a faculty behind the faculty of the outer eye. You have an inner eye, and you have an inner ear, and you have an inner taste, and an inner touch, and an inner fragrance that you can detect. Now, it can take a lot of practice, but it depends on the individual. It doesn't have to take a lot of practice, but for most of us, because we're so involved in our mortal life that, you know, it takes sitting down and understanding that that's what's there, that these are real, and if we connect with them, they'll begin to awaken. And it's really not that they need to be awakened, it's that we need to be awakened to them. And that's what makes them active in our life. Now, let's go back and understand that the presence of God is the source of all. And God is a sun shining. And its light radiates out and expresses as individual being. Just like the rays of the sun, there's billions and billions of light rays that come off the sun, trillions and trillions and trillions of light rays that come off the sun. With God, it's infinite. All these infinite rays of light are coming out and appearing as individual beings. It is God itself appearing as individual being. And that is us. That is who we are. And embodied in that light is the perfect idea of who our individual being is. It's perfect expression. Now that individual light ray extends out and expresses as our soul. And our soul is pure consciousness. It is the consciousness of our life. And this individual God self is our life and expression, and our consciousness is the awareness of it. Now, that extends, the soul then extends outwardly as feelings, as our feeling world, as a field of feelings. Now, these feelings are not the emotions. And what I mean by that is we experience emotions when our feelings are following world thoughts that come into our mind. When the soul directs its attention outwardly and follows the mind, what the world is telling the mind, and becomes in agreement with that, that's where you get your emotions from. Your feelings are really there so that you can express the soul and all the things, all the qualities and capacities of God, that you can feel the truth of them and bring them forth out into outer expression. So the soul is like, has this extension of itself, and it first appears as this field of feeling. And then that extends outwardly more. The soul then extends outwardly as the mind, as the intellectual mind. And that is really an extension of our divine mind. We are, as individual being, we are in the very center of God's divine mind. We are that mind, but we are a center of that mind. And all that is in the divine mind is available to us as in the outer expressions. The outer extensions of ourself are to express all the qualities and all the good things that God created for us to experience. Now, that extension of mind, which we call the intellectual mind, its function is to express or transmit what it receives. And it receives whatever the soul's attention is on. So if the soul's attention is on what the world is telling the mind, then the mind will fill with that knowledge, and then that knowledge will then transmit, and that transmission then hits up against the one substance of God, the one God form that is undividable and that is there as a tool to bring back to us in images what the mind is filled with. And so it builds itself off with the quantum particles, the atoms, the molecules, the cells, and then builds a form. Now, these are mental forms, they're mind forms. They're temporary, and they're not permanent, so they're not God created. They're the outer mind, and that outer mind, what it fills with, transmits, comes back as images, and then we sense it with our five senses. Now, then that mind, as you can see, then extends as body. And this body then becomes the temple where we experience our world. Now, in reality, our body and our world are really one. We think of ourselves as being inside the skin and the world being outside the skin. And that's what we've been taught. And so our experience is as if we were separated from our world. We're not really separated from our world. We have just been filling the mind with this information that says we're separated from the world. In reality, our body extends out as far as our awareness goes. And that is our world body, our body world. They are one. And it is all one. These are just aspects of the one God. The one God extending itself out and expressing outwardly as creation. Now, with that understood, the soul, what the soul fills the mind with is what we're going to experience. So when we learn to wake up in the soul, then we can turn within and receive God and what God is, and then that will, through our awakeness to it, through our awareness of it, it will fill the mind, and then that will transmit out, come back to us as images that will now be more like God images, in the image and likeness of God. So that meditation was there to help you first begin to do that, to awaken to these inner perceptions. The soul is really where we function from. But as long as we think we're a mind and a body, we won't be able to awaken these soul senses. And the soul senses is really what we're living from. But when the soul's deluded into believing that we're a body and mind and we're mortals and we're in a world where the world's outside of us and we're inside the skin, then what comes with that is all the knowledge of the world, which says there's both good and evil. So the knowledge of good and evil is what is perpetuating these images of mortality. So they're not real in the sense that they're self-created. Not that we're real creators, we're just projecting images of what we fill the mind with. This outer mind, not the divine mind. God fills the divine mind. And that is what we're really supposed to be doing, is drawing off this divine mind and filling this extension of mind with all the qualities of God. And all those qualities of God are perfect. There is no limitations, no lacks, no malfunctions, no decaying, no dying. That is all man-made. That is all human-made conceptions that we have put in motion by filling our minds with them. Okay? So, the soul, we can start to wake up to the soul even as we move throughout the day, as we are doing our duties, washing the dishes, going to work, working out in the yard, whatever it is we do, going out for vacation. When we're out in the world, we can practice awakening our soul senses. And we do that by understanding that, first of all, we are not the mind and we are not the body. We are souls. God made us conscious souls, and that soul is one with God's Spirit, that individualized God self of us is one with our soul consciousness, and that is our true life. Now, if I move my arm, I just move it. I have no, excuse me, I have no knowledge of how to move the arm. I don't know all the details of how to do that. It takes a million functions just to move the arm. I mean, all the cells in my shoulder, the muscles, the bones, the skin. Now, I know about those things, but I don't know all the molecular workings that it takes to do it. Okay, so little computer pop-ups there. Yeah. Sorry about that. Now, so it's the soul that moves the arm. I move the arm. The arm doesn't move itself. I move the arm. Now, that seems like common sense. Everybody knows that, right? But do they know that there's an intelligence and an activity and a love presence that is doing the work? I do it, yet I don't do it. That spirit within me does the work. It moves the arm. My eyes, I look out at the world and I see, but it's not me doing it. I direct it, and yet this intelligence in my eyes, this activity in my eyes, which is a spirit activity, it functions the eye. It makes the eye function. Now, this eye is nothing more than an extension of my inner eye, my soul eyes. My ears are nothing more than an extension of my soul hearing. My touch is nothing more than an extension of my soul awareness. Everything comes from the soul. Nothing is done out here. And so we might ask, well, if the soul's doing it and the soul's pure consciousness, why does it malfunction? And the reason it malfunctions is because we've directed it to malfunction by filling the mind with the knowledge that the world has been telling us that we have bodies that decay and malfunction. And our agreement with that, our acceptance of it, has proliferated it. And it has become an image that now we're detecting with our five senses. And if we judge by the appearance, like Jesus said, don't judge by appearances. If we judge by these appearances and claim that what we're seeing with our five senses is the truth, then that further perpetuates it. So we get locked into this cycle of knowledge from the world thoughts, And then when we see it, we think that's the verification of it. And we say, oh, yeah, it's true. I can see it with my eyes. I can hear it with my ears. But that's a misidentification. That's a false hearing, because what we're hearing is what we filled the mind with. And it's not the truth. The truth is what comes out of God. And eventually we'll fill the mind with that, and then we'll actually experience the truth. We'll actually have images that project what the truth is. And so if I get up out of my chair, it's the soul getting up out of the chair. And this inner spirit is the intelligence and the activity that knows all the inner workings of these mind images and knows how to make it happen. And so it's actually true with our outer world as well. And we don't realize that. We think that we're just experiencing this world, that we're just moving through the world and having this world experience. But in reality, it's our soul that is directing it. We are moving in the way our soul is directing us. Now, our soul got fooled by what Jesus called Satan, and we call it world mind or world thoughts because it's all of humanity's thoughts that are, and it has its own subconscious mind, and so it's been since the beginning of the earth that these things have collected, and all these ideas have perpetuated themselves. And when they come into our individual minds, if we agree with them, then that's what we experience. Now, I know some of this seems like repetition, but a lot of times we have to repeat things in order to get a new concept across. So they kind of all fit together, and so there's definitely some repetition. We're not trying to bore you. We're just trying to get this new concept across about soul senses. So I act, and then this outer expression of my soul is the expression of that soul acting. What I do, what I think, comes from the soul. I think. I'm not the thoughts, but I am the thinker. I am the one who has the thoughts. They're not my thoughts. They either come from the world or they come from my inner God self. It's one or the other. There's no personal thoughts, really. That's a delusion. It seems like it because they're in our individual mind, but it's only because our individual mind is receiving them. So the practice during the day is to realize that if my body feels thirsty and I get up and get a drink of water, that is the Spirit of God producing that water. It is the Spirit of God's intelligence and activity that gets me up to go get it. And then I drink it, and it quenches my thirst. That's all the activity of my soul. Now, we don't really need water. The soul is the substance of the body. So the soul doesn't need to have water. If any hydration is needed, it comes from within and builds outwardly. But since we're caught up in this idea that we need things in the outer world, yet our soul will produce those things that we think we need. Now, there's one glitch to this, and that is that if you try and use this for selfish purposes, it won't work. And the reason it won't work is because there's nothing out here for us to get. There's really no such thing as getting. We produce everything from within our own souls, and they express outwardly. Our soul extends outwardly in expression. And that is where everything comes from. It comes from within us. Now, when we get back into that soul and get aware of it and start turning within to our God self and letting that God self come through, then our awareness of that will bring up all the perfection that's in the mind of God. But until then, this awakening process is going to be practicing and being aware as you move through the day. If I hit that light switch and it turns on that light, that's not happening out here in the outer world. That's my soul consciousness working with this inner spirit that is the intelligence and activity of my body world, and it produces the light. It made the electricity in the first place. It made the light bulb. It forms everything and anything that we think we need. Okay? And I can see Patty
trying to nudge you.
has something
You
for
said
us.
it beautifully in your book, in chapter 8, You Are Divinely Made. And there's a story about the title, You Are Divinely Made, which goes right to the subject he's talking about right now. But here we are. You wrote, I am inner spirit. As beautiful how you phrased that. And then you expounded on it here.
Okay.
Here.
Okay, so we're going to read a little bit. Oh, wonderful, majestic life, moving like a gushing river through the individual consciousness, permeating all existence, expressing its fullness at every point in our outside space. We welcome embracing your divine intelligence, bringing your idea into evidence. Yes, that says it very well. It's when we turn within, when we get out of the mind and out of the body, out of the keeping our attention out there and start being aware that we're the souls, we are all souls, and then allowing our inner radiance to radiate out, then we can just start watching the perfection and not be caught up in all this. I have to do this, I have to do that, I need to grow, I need to become, and all that stuff. Okay, so where am I reading from
You've
here?
often referred to the wheel of the soul. And here's the expansion from when you do jump off the wheel. Okay, so here's a couple things you can do to start things moving by becoming awake to the wheel of the soul. When we witness thoughts claiming the truth like I am divinely made, I am eternal now and forever, I am the one omnipresent life, I am the one omnipresent self, and there is no other self. So anyone perceived as hurting any of us is also that one self. Or any thought declaring the truth of being, then we are on a spiral upward. When we realize forms have no power except
for the power that we ourselves give them. Then we are laying claim to our inheritance, so no lack or limitation can hinder us. Our thoughts, feelings, or beliefs give rise to forms, so there is no deception about what the world is or who caused it. Now there is nothing to hate or to resent. I made all the images I see by filling the mind with what I chose. I made all the images that I see. I may have done this unknowingly, and yet, nonetheless, this is what happened. This brings everything out into the open, starting a spiral up into the heavens. When we have a problem, bring it up into the light of truth, and then it will dissipate.
Today I choose.
Today I choose. I choose God. Okay, that was very beautiful, Patty. Thank you very
Beautiful,
much.
Lance.
And okay, so I want to read you a little bit out of the Bible because this pertains to the inner senses and the outer senses. And it says, let me get back here to the spot. Okay, here we go. This is in St. Matthew chapter 25. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins. So he's not talking about 10 virgins. What he's talking about is the kingdom of heaven. And where is the kingdom of heaven? This is the kingdom of heaven. There's no other kingdom of heaven somewhere else. The only problem is we're not awake to it, that God is here. God's heaven is here. We're in heaven. We have just been tricked into believing that we're not in heaven. So we got fooled. Now it's likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. Okay, so the bridegroom is the Christ in us. And so the whole point of life is for our soul to marry our inner God self so that it all works together, that we're in harmony, functioning. I'm functioning and my God self is functioning. I, the soul, and I, the spirit. We are one. Now, their lamps represent all that we've been given that light the way for us. God has given us everything we ever needed and everything we could ever want. Now, I'm not talking about wanting selfishly. That's different. That's what the mind thinks, that it needs to get things out here, that it needs to get things from God. No, God already gave it everything. There's no getting. Not in reality. We've been fooled into thinking that we need to get things instead of drawing them out from within ourselves. Okay, so they went forth to meet the bridegroom with their lamps, and 5 of them were wise and 5 of them were foolish. So our outer senses, our outer 5 senses, don't know the truth. They don't know God. They cannot know God. They can't know anything about God. The mind, this outer intellectual mind, knows nothing of God. It cannot. It only knows what you fill the mind with. And it doesn't know it. It just projects it. And then that comes back as images that we experience. They that were foolish took their lamps, but they took no oil with them. So this oil represents this Holy Spirit that is within us, this God self that is within us. And these outer senses have no capacity to get the oil. The oil, only the soul can fill the lamp with oil. But the wise took the oil in their vessels and their lamps. So these inner senses can fill their lamps, which is the capacities that God has given us, and fill it, but it only works when it's filled with the Spirit, when it's filled with our inner God self that does the work, when we are awake to it in the soul. And while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. So the soul is asleep temporarily. And the mind is asleep in its dream. It's dreaming that it was mortal. It's dreaming that it has a life aside from God, that it is of its own self something, and God is something separate. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. And so we don't know when the Christ comes. The Christ comes when we're sleeping, and when we're not watching, or when we're not listening with our inner soul perceptions. And so that's why we have to keep the oil in the lamp, is so that when Christ calls us, we're ready and we have oil to light the way to the Christ. Then all the virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us your oil, for our lamps are gone out. They had no oil in their lamps, so the outer senses cannot find their way to Christ. They cannot fill, no matter how good you act, no matter how good your thoughts are, it will not fill your lamp with the Spirit of God. It will not fill only your soul can be filled with the Spirit of God, which then will express outwardly. But first, it must be done from the soul. And the soul won't give it to the outer senses because the outer senses want it. You can't, it's not about getting. The outer senses tell us, oh, we need to get things. I need to get it either out here or I need to get it from God. Neither is the truth. God has already given us everything, and we need to wake up to it, light our lamps, so that we can see the truth. But the wise answered, saying, No, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourself. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. So the outer senses think that they can accomplish finding their way into heaven, into the Christ, into the marriage of Christ, but they cannot. The outer five senses think that they can go and buy or trade or bargain their way into heaven, but it just cannot be done. You have to get into the soul and fill your soul with the light of God. Afterward came also the virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Truly I say to you, I know ye not. So the Christ doesn't recognize these outer perceptions when they are caught up in their own self, trying to function their own self. When we just see with our eyes, hear with our ears, smell with our nose, taste and touch, when we're just doing that with our body, then we're outside the kingdom of God, and we're not awake to it, because it's our soul that is seeing. It's our soul that is hearing. It's our soul that is tasting, touching, and smelling. It is our soul where all the perception is, where all the awareness is. And it's not in these outer ones. That is just the expression of the state of the soul at this moment. And the Christ won't recognize it. You cannot detect the Christ with the outer senses. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day or the hour wherein the Son of Man comes. So the Son of Man is our soul, with the lamp lit, with the inner God self. And so that's just a story of it. Now, these inner soul perceptions are not just about the 5 inner senses. Your soul is perception. Innovation comes out of the depth of the soul. It comes from within the soul consciousness. Creativity, art, music, literature, this all comes from deep within our souls. It's part of our soul perception. And when we go within and look for it, then it can come forth. We can bring it out according to our own soul desire at this time. Intuition. Intuition is a soul perception. So you see, there's more to it than just perceiving the inner worlds. There are many inner worlds and inner bodies that we can become aware of. But there's even more to it than that. There's more to it. There is the depth of God is within our soul. We are in the divine mind. We are an expression of the divine mind. We are a center of the divine mind, and all that is in the divine mind, we can bring out through our awareness of it. So what we have to do is become aware of it, but first we have to get back in the soul. We can do that in the meditations. There's a lot of different methods for doing it, but the ear practice that we did and the eye practice that we did, where you start moving within, listening within, and watching within, looking for that inner illumination, that inner radiance that is shining within you. That begins to awaken the soul out of this dream of mortality. And I call it a dream because we have the experience of it. We feel it. We definitely feel it with our bodies, and we feel the pain and we feel the pleasure. We have the experience of it, but it's not real because it's temporary and it's self-created. and God didn't create it. And so we withdraw out of that. In our meditations, we remind ourselves, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not even this field of feelings. I'm the soul. I am pure awareness. God made awareness. And then from there, we can learn to go within. So even during the day, we start to notice, oh, this is not me doing this. This is my soul doing it. And there's this spirit in me that is this intelligence and this activity and this love presence that is doing everything that I do. Whatever direction I go in, it does the work for me when I understand that that's what's happening. The more I understand the reality of what real life is, that it is the soul that is acting, it's not the mind and the body acting. And that there is this inner eternal companion that does all the work for us. If we keep our attention on what we are, which is the spirit soul, that's what we are. And it has a radiance in it that will shine out into the world, and then our outward expressions will express in an image and likeness that is like God, like God's intention of us. Okay. I think that's about it for today. So we thank you for joining us. And if we have our website is mydivinelight.com. You can send us an email if you have questions. We'd be happy to answer them for you.
I have a question.
Okay, Patty has a question.
Okay. My question is, you're talking about filling the mind, and during the making of the book, we had things we didn't put into it, but it came to us exactly at the same time, instantaneously from somewhere, like the title.
Right. Yes. And that is what we call God activity.
Did we do that by filling our minds and all the time we spent working?
We did that by going in our soul and going within our soul and then watching. It's this watching process and listening, and if you keep that inner ear open and that inner eye open, and you're looking for God to give you what God wants you to do, then those things, that's where those things come from. They just come out and they seem like they're out here, but they're not. They're out here as an expression, but they came from within. And that's why we didn't get those things from out here. All those things that fill this book came from within us. And then they expressed outwardly.
It was that river, that river that flows.
River of life flowing through the soul that produces it. Absolutely. Yes. And so we can do that in all our functions of life, in our gardens, in our kitchens, in our work environments. We can keep that inner ear open. When we start realizing, oh, I'm the soul, then we can start saying, well, oh, I can listen. I have an inner ear I can listen for. I can watch for God's activity in my life. I can listen for God's direction, for God's guidance, for God's unfoldment, and the more you practice it, It's like anything, the more you practice it, the more you'll see the result of it.
It's
in
like our
those
friend
things.
Lynn. She called it surfing grace.
She called, yes.
We
Lynn
love
was
that.
from Hawaii, so
Yeah, she was
she called
sweet.
it surfing
She
grace.
said we're surfing grace.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here today.
Yes, it was a pleasure to be with you.
Wonderful.
We hope that this is beneficial, and it will be if you practice. Okay? All right. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you again.
God
Bye-bye.
bless.